My friends, let me tell you something. When God steps in, the game changes. The narcissist may think they have control, may believe they can manipulate, and may even try to break your spirit, but they cannot break what God himself has built. See, there comes a time when enough is enough. God will not sit back and watch his daughters suffer. When you cry out to him, when you've been betrayed, mistreated, and left feeling powerless, that's when his strength shows up the loudest. Let me ask you right now, have you ever been in a place where someone underestimated you, disrespected you, tried to make you feel small? Drop a yes in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. Understand this, a narcissist feeds on control, but God breaks every chain. A narcissist speaks lies, but God's truth shines brighter. A narcissist tries to isolate you, but God surrounds you with love and protection. When God defends you, it is no longer your battle, it becomes his. And when God fights, he does not lose. You see, when I say God's protection is greater than any manipulation, I mean that from the deepest part of my soul. Because there are people out here who think they can outsmart you, people who live off deception, who wear masks so tight that even their own reflection doesn't recognize them anymore. A narcissist builds their power on illusion. They twist words, they create stories, they feed on control. They want you to believe that without them, you are nothing. But here's the truth. They don't get the final say. God does. And when God is standing on your side, there isn't a scheme, there isn't a lie, there isn't a manipulative tactic that can hold you down. The narcissist thrives when you feel powerless. They feed off your silence. They want you confused, doubting yourself, questioning your worth. But God doesn't leave you in confusion. God steps in and begins to whisper truth where lies once lived. He lifts your head when they tried to bow it in shame. He reminds you that you are his daughter, chosen, called, and worthy. And no amount of gaslighting can erase what God has already declared over your life. Let me tell you this. God's protection doesn't always show up the way you expect. Sometimes it looks like a door closing that you didn't want to close. Sometimes it looks like someone walking away you thought you needed. Sometimes it looks like silence when you begged for answers. But if you could only see what he was protecting you from, if you could only see the traps he's pulling you out of, you would understand that his no is still love, his delay is still protection, his distance is still covering. I want you to think about this for a moment. Have you ever been in a place where you look back and said, if I had stayed in that relationship, if I had trusted that person one more time, if I had given them one more chance, I don't know where I'd be right now. That's not luck. That's protection. That's God stepping in when you didn't even see the danger. That's his hand holding you when you didn't even know you were being attacked. If you know God has ever protected you from something you couldn't see, I want you to drop a "thank you, God" in the comments right now. See, the narcissist thinks they're in control, but they don't know who you belong to. They think their manipulation can trap you, but they don't realize God is 10 steps ahead. While they're plotting in secret, God is already dismantling their plan. While they're whispering lies in the dark, God is shining light that exposes every hidden thing. While they're setting traps for your soul, God is breaking chains that were meant to hold you. That's why some people suddenly fell out of your life. That's why some relationships crumbled. That's why some friendships didn't last. It wasn't rejection, it was protection. Let me make it clear, manipulation can only survive where truth is absent. And when God steps in, he brings truth with him. That's why you started noticing things you ignored before. That's why you began to feel restless in situations that used to feel normal. That's why conversations that once kept you trapped suddenly felt empty. God was opening your eyes because his protection doesn't just remove the attack. His protection opens your vision so you can see the attack for what it is. Some of you right now are fighting to hold on to people God has already released you from. You're still trying to prove your worth to someone who has no intention of ever seeing it. You're still trying to explain your heart to someone committed to misunderstanding it. That's not love, that's manipulation. And the more you fight to hold on, the more you're stepping outside of the covering God has already placed over you. Hear me when I say this. When God removes someone from your life, it's not punishment. It's protection. You didn't lose them. You gained freedom. And this is where it gets real. Because the narcissist doesn't stop when you pull away. They come back with more lies, more charm, more false promises. They call it an apology, but it's just another doorway back into the same cycle. But when God protects you, he doesn't just pull you out. He keeps you out. He strengthens you so their words no longer move you. Their presence no longer intimidates you. Their manipulation no longer blinds you. That's why people say, you've changed. No, you didn't change. You woke up, and waking up is God's protection in action. Now, I want to talk to somebody who feels stuck right now. You're listening to this and you're thinking, but I'm still in the middle of it. I don't see a way out. I don't feel strong enough to fight back. Hear me. This is not your fight. This is God's fight. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know the next step. All you have to do is trust that his protection covers what you can't see. You might feel small compared to the narcissist games, but you are not small in the hands of God. So the next time manipulation comes knocking, the next time someone tries to twist your truth, the next time they attempt to drag you back into the cycle, I want you to stand tall and declare this: no weapon formed against me shall prosper, because God protects me. And if you believe that, I need you to comment right now: God is my defender. Because at the end of the day, manipulation is temporary, but God's protection is eternal. Lies fade, truth remains. Control breaks, freedom lasts. And when God is for you, no one, absolutely no one, can stand against you. Your value comes from God, not the narcissist. Let me repeat that so it sinks deep. Your value does not come from their approval, their attention, their validation, or their acceptance. And the sooner you understand that, the freer you will become. See, the narcissist wants you to believe that you only matter when they say you matter. They want you to think that your worth depends on whether they choose you today, whether they compliment you today, whether they decide to love you the way you've been begging to be loved. But that's not where your value comes from. You were valuable before they met you. You'll be valuable long after they're gone. And your worth is not up for negotiation. What the narcissist fears most is that you wake up to who you really are. Because when you realize that God himself placed value inside of you, you stop begging for what should have been freely given. You stop chasing after someone who was never running toward you. You stop lowering yourself just to be tolerated when God has called you to be celebrated. Let me ask you something. Have you ever caught yourself giving too much of yourself, shrinking just to make somebody else comfortable, and at the end of it, still felt like you weren't enough? If you've ever been there, I want you to type "I'm enough" in the comments right now, because you need to declare it for yourself. You are enough. The reason the narcissist works so hard to strip you of identity is because they know how powerful you are once you stand in it. They know that if you ever realize that you're chosen, that you're loved, that you're worthy, their grip on you is broken. So they throw insults to break your confidence. They use silence to make you feel invisible. They give you crumbs so you'll forget you deserve a feast. But every tactic is designed to keep you from remembering the truth, that your value is not up for debate. Understand this: God didn't create you by accident. He didn't put you on this earth hoping you'd figure out who you are. No, he stamped you with purpose before you even took your first breath. And that means no narcissist, no manipulator, no liar, no deceiver has the power to rewrite what God already wrote. You might have been overlooked by people, but you've never been overlooked by God. You might have been rejected by someone you gave your heart to, but you have never been rejected by the one who created your heart. And sometimes it hurts because you keep asking yourself, why wasn't I enough for them? Why didn't they see my value? Why couldn't they love me the way I loved them? Let me tell you, sometimes the issue isn't that you weren't enough. Sometimes the issue is that they were too empty to recognize the fullness inside of you. Sometimes the problem is not that you weren't worthy, but that they were too broken to handle the weight of your worth. Stop confusing their blindness with your lack. Just because they couldn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't there. I want to challenge you right now. Stop allowing someone who cannot love themselves to define how lovable you are. Stop letting someone who is committed to control decide how free you can be. Stop giving someone who thrives on tearing you down the authority to say who you are. That power belongs to God and God alone. And what does he say? He says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. He says you are more precious than rubies. He says you are the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. He says you are his masterpiece. So I ask you, whose voice are you going to believe? The voice of a narcissist who only speaks lies, or the voice of your creator who only speaks truth? And I know what some of you are thinking. But I still feel broken. I still feel damaged. I still feel like pieces of me are missing after everything I went through. That's all right, because value doesn't decrease just because something has been through struggle. A diamond in the dirt is still a diamond. Gold that's been melted by fire is still gold. And your worth, even after heartbreak, even after betrayal, even after abuse, is untouched. Don't let what you went through make you forget who you are. I want you to do something right now. Declare it out loud. Type it in the comments. Let it come from your spirit. My value comes from God. Because when you begin to believe that, the games lose their power. The insults don't cut as deep. The manipulation doesn't land the same. You start to walk differently. You start to carry yourself like someone who knows she belongs to the king. So don't chase their approval. Don't beg for their validation. Don't let their silence define your worth. Stand firm in the truth that God himself has already called you valuable, already called you worthy, already called you enough. Because once you know where your value comes from, you'll never again settle for someone who tries to take it away. God turns pain into power. Let that sink in for a second. Because what was meant to break you, God will use to build you. The narcissist thinks that by tearing you down, they've won. They believe that by leaving you empty, they've taken everything from you. But what they don't understand is that pain in the hands of God is never wasted. Every tear you cried, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, it all becomes raw material for your strength, your growth, and your testimony. The narcissist feeds off pain, but God transforms it. The enemy wants your pain to be the end of your story, but God takes that same pain and makes it the beginning of your new chapter. Think about it. Some of the strongest people you've ever met didn't get there because life was easy. They got there because life knocked them down and God picked them up again. They got there because pain taught them lessons that comfort never could. They got there because even when the world told them they were finished, God said, "I'm not done with you yet." I want to ask you, how many times have you gone through something you thought was going to destroy you, only to look back later and realize it actually made you stronger? If you've ever had that moment, I want you to comment right now, "My pain made me stronger." Because you need to remember it wasn't the end, it was the making of you. You see, pain will do two things. It will either imprison you or it will propel you. The narcissist wants you imprisoned by it, stuck in the cycle, repeating the same lies to yourself, carrying the same guilt and shame. But God uses pain to propel you, to move you into places you would have never gone without it, to push you into strength you would have never known you had. He takes what was supposed to paralyze you and instead turns it into power that fuels your next level. And here's the part I love. When God turns pain into power, it doesn't just bless you, it blesses everybody connected to you. Your story becomes someone else's survival guide. Your scars become someone else's reminder that healing is possible. Your strength becomes someone else's courage. That's why you can't let the pain keep you quiet. Somebody is waiting on the other side of your testimony. Somebody needs to see that you made it through so they can believe they will too. The narcissist thought they silenced you, but God gave you a voice. They thought they left you broken, but God is making you whole. They thought they dimmed your light, but God is setting you on fire. That's what happens when pain gets turned into power. It shines brighter, it reaches further, it impacts deeper than anything comfort ever could. But let's be real. When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like power. When you're crying on the bathroom floor, when you're questioning everything about yourself, when you're trying to piece back together what somebody else shattered, you don't see the power in that moment. You just see the pain. And that's where trust comes in. Because God isn't asking you to see it right away. He's asking you to hold on, to not let go, to believe that even when you don't understand it, He's working behind the scenes. You may not see it today, but every step you take in faith, every tear you refuse to let define you, every prayer you whisper even when you feel weak, that's God shaping your pain into strength. That's God molding your weakness into resilience. That's God reminding you that what hurt you is not going to have the last word. So instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" start asking, "What is this building in me?" Because that's the shift. The pain you went through is not just a wound. It's training. It's preparation. It's shaping you for battles ahead, shaping you for blessings you couldn't have carried without the weight you already endured. What once broke you will soon be the reason you can lift someone else out of their darkness. And here's the thing. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect to see the power. Even right now, even while you're still healing, there's power in you. The fact that you're still standing, the fact that you're still breathing, the fact that you're still searching for God in the middle of your struggle, that's power. You may not feel strong, but strength is not the absence of struggle. Strength is surviving in the struggle and choosing not to give up. So when you look back at the pain that tried to destroy you, I want you to remember this. It wasn't wasted. It wasn't meaningless. It wasn't for nothing. God is going to use it. He's going to take the very thing that was supposed to kill you and make it the testimony that brings you life. He's going to take the very weapon that was formed against you and turn it into the tool that builds you. If you believe that your pain is being turned into power, I want you to declare it right now in the comments. My pain will not break me, it will build me. Because when God gets involved, pain never has the final word. Power does. God sees what others cannot see. And that right there is what gives you the greatest protection. Because while the narcissist can fool people with their charm, their words, their image, they can't fool God. People around you might look at them and say, "What a good person. What a kind heart. What a perfect partner." But behind closed doors, you know the reality. And even when no one else believes you, even when no one else sees the pain behind your smile, God sees it all. The narcissist is a master of disguise. They build their world on performance. In public, they're generous, they're kind, they're polished. But in private, they're cruel, dismissive, manipulative. And sometimes you feel trapped because nobody else can see the monster you see. Nobody else recognizes the games you're living through. You start to wonder, am I crazy? Am I the problem? Why can't anyone else see what's happening to me? That's the power of their mask. But here's the good news. God looks past the mask. God sees straight into the heart. And the word says, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That means no matter how flawless their act seems, God isn't impressed by performance. He isn't swayed by words. He isn't blinded by the image they project. He sees the intentions, the motives, the hidden thoughts, and He knows the truth. So even if the whole world believes their lie, God does not. And that should give you peace. Let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation where people thought they knew someone, but behind closed doors you were living a whole different reality? If that's you, I want you to comment, God sees it all, because you need to remind yourself, you are not unseen, you are not unheard, you are not alone in this. See, the narcissist thrives on secrecy. They make you believe nobody will ever know the truth. They make you believe if you tell your story, people will call you dramatic, bitter, or even crazy. But what they don't know is that God has already seen the beginning and the end of the story. He knows what they did in the dark, and he promises that what's done in secret will eventually come to light. You don't even have to fight for the spotlight of truth. God himself will uncover it in his timing. Sometimes, God allows the mask to stay on for a season because he's preparing you. He's strengthening you. He's teaching you discernment. But don't mistake his patience for blindness. Just because he hasn't exposed them yet doesn't mean he doesn't see them. It just means he's waiting for the right moment, the moment when you're strong enough to stand free, the moment when their downfall won't take you down with them. Because God doesn't just see the situation. He sees you in it, and he knows exactly when to bring you out. And I want to encourage somebody here, stop wasting energy trying to convince people of who the narcissist really is. Stop trying to prove your pain to people who are too blind to see it. You don't have to fight to be believed when you know God already believes you. You don't have to spend sleepless nights rehearsing conversations, gathering proof, defending your story. Let God be your witness. Let God be your vindication. Because when he reveals the truth, no one will be able to deny it. And here's what's powerful. God doesn't just see what they're doing to you. He also sees what's inside of you. He sees the strength you don't know you have yet. He sees the courage you haven't tapped into. He sees the warrior in you even when you feel weak. He sees the survivor in you even when you feel broken. So while you're questioning if you can make it through, God is already looking at the victory on the other side. He sees what you can't see in yourself. So the next time you feel invisible, the next time you feel like no one believes your truth, the next time you feel like their mask is stronger than your voice, I want you to remember this. God sees. He sees the injustice. He sees the lies. He sees the manipulation. And he also sees your resilience, your heart, your fight. And in his timing, he will make sure that what's hidden is revealed, that what's false falls apart, and that the truth rises up. If you believe that God sees what others cannot, I want you to declare it right now in the comments, God sees me. Because even when people don't, even when the world doesn't, even when the narcissist thinks they've hidden everything behind a smile, God sees, and that changes everything. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. That's not just a verse to memorize, that's a promise to live by. Because when you are under God's covering, the attacks can come, the lies can come, the manipulation can come. But they will not win. The narcissist may think they've set the perfect trap, but every weapon they form will fail when it meets the power of God's protection. The narcissist thrives on control, thrives on intimidation, thrives on making you feel like you're always walking on eggshells. They design their attacks carefully. Maybe it's through words meant to crush your spirit. Maybe it's through silence meant to punish you. Maybe it's through blame meant to keep you carrying weight that was never yours. But let me remind you of something powerful. Those are weapons. And a weapon doesn't have to be physical to be destructive. A weapon can be emotional, a weapon can be mental, a weapon can be spiritual. And yet the word says no weapon formed against you shall prosper. That means it might form, but it won't finish. It might be fired, but it won't hit its target. It might be aimed at your heart, but God himself becomes your shield. Let me ask you this, have you ever looked back at something that was supposed to destroy you and realized it didn't? You thought it was over, you thought you couldn't get up, but here you are. If you've ever survived an attack that should have taken you out, I want you to type this in the comments. It didn't prosper, because sometimes we forget we made it through things that could have destroyed us, and the only reason we did was because God blocked it. You see, the narcissist thinks their words will define you. They think their silence will control you. They think their lies will bury you. But those weapons only have as much power as you give them. And when you stand on God's word, when you root your identity in his truth, you strip those weapons of their power. A knife without a blade is useless. A gun without bullets can't kill. And a narcissist's attacks, when they hit the wall of God's protection, lose their power. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying, but it still hurts. I still feel the sting of their words. I still feel the pain of their rejection. That's real. The weapon may form. The sting may hit. But what God promises is that it won't prosper. It won't destroy you. It won't define you. It won't be the end of you. Pain may be temporary, but purpose is permanent. And purpose is something no narcissist can take away from you. Sometimes God allows the weapon to form just so you can see that it won't prosper. He lets you see the arrows flying, but then he shows you how none of them land. He lets you hear the lies whispered, but then he raises your voice higher than theirs. He lets you feel the push against you, but then he anchors you so strong that you cannot be moved. That's not to break you. That's to remind you who's truly fighting for you. You don't have to waste energy fighting every attack. You don't have to argue with every lie. You don't have to prove yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. When God says no weapon shall prosper, he's saying your job is not to swing at every strike. Your job is to trust the shield he already put around you. Some battles are not for you to fight. Some battles are just for you to survive long enough to see God win them for you. And here's the thing. The narcissist will keep forming weapons because that's all they know how to do. They will keep trying to manipulate, control, intimidate, and destroy. But you don't have to fear what they form, because their formation doesn't equal your destruction. Their intention doesn't dictate your outcome. God has already spoken the final word, and that word is victory. So the next time you feel an attack coming, the next time you feel like the weapons are too heavy, I want you to remind yourself it might form, but it won't prosper. Say it out loud. Write it down. Speak it over your life until it becomes the truth you stand on. Because the moment you stop fearing the weapon loses its power. And if you're watching this right now, and you've been in the middle of attacks that feel too strong for you, I want you to comment this declaration. No weapon against me will win. Say it, believe it, own it. Because God's protection isn't just a promise, it's already your reality. Because when God says no weapon formed against you shall prosper, that settles it. You don't have to wonder, you don't have to doubt. You just have to trust and walk in the freedom of knowing that nothing the narcissist forms can stop what God has destined for your life. God brings divine justice. And when I say divine, I mean justice that no courtroom, no lawyer, no audience of people can ever deliver. Because there are battles that human hands can't solve. There are wrongs that no apology could ever make right. There are wounds too deep for, I'm sorry, to heal. And that's where God steps in, because his justice is not just about punishing the guilty. It's about restoring the broken, revealing the hidden, and balancing the scales that have been unfair for too long. The narcissist lives off injustice. They lie without remorse. They manipulate without shame. They wound without accountability. And when you're on the other side of it, it feels like they always get away with it. They charm their way into positions. They deceive people into believing their story. They spin every truth until it's unrecognizable. And sometimes you cry out, God, where is the justice? Where is the truth? Where is the moment where people finally see them for who they really are? But let me tell you something. The silence of God is not the absence of justice. Just because he hasn't moved yet doesn't mean he isn't moving. See, human justice looks for evidence. It needs proof. It needs witnesses. But God doesn't need any of that. He saw it all. He heard it all. He knows it all. The conversations you cried through alone, he was there. The gaslighting that left you questioning your sanity, he saw it. The manipulation they thought no one would ever uncover, he already recorded it. And his justice doesn't just deal with what they did, it also heals what you endured. Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever felt like somebody got away with hurting you? If that's you, I want you to type right now, God is my justice. Because you need to remind yourself, people may escape accountability in this world, but no one escapes accountability with him. And here's what's beautiful about divine justice. It doesn't just bring exposure, it brings closure. Because exposure without healing leaves you bitter. But God doesn't just want to reveal the truth, he wants to free you from the weight of the lie. That's why when he brings justice, he doesn't just bring it to them, he brings it for you. He restores peace to your mind, strength to your spirit, hope to your heart. And sometimes his justice looks like tables turning. The very trap they set for you ends up catching them. The very lies they told about you end up exposing them. The very shame they tried to put on you ends up returning to their own doorstep. That's not karma, that's God's divine law. That's the reaping and sowing he promised from the beginning. They thought they planted seeds of destruction in your life, but they were only planting the harvest of their own downfall. And I know, it's hard waiting on that justice. It's hard watching them smile while you cry. It's hard watching them walk free while you feel stuck. But waiting on God's justice doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. Because when you take justice into your own hands, you'll always come up short. But when you place it in God's hands, he'll deliver it in ways you could have never imagined. His justice is complete. His justice is perfect. His justice doesn't just punish, it redeems. Some of you are carrying bitterness because you've been waiting for that person to admit what they did, to apologize, to make it right. Let me free you from that. Stop waiting on them. They may never apologize. They may never admit the truth. They may never change. But you don't need their words when you have God's justice. Let him be the one who vindicates you. Let him be the one who clears your name. Let him be the one who lifts you above the lies. Because his justice cannot be manipulated. It cannot be delayed. It cannot be denied. So the next time you're tempted to get even, the next time you feel like taking revenge, the next time you want to prove to everyone who they really are, pause and remember. Vengeance is not yours, it's God's. and his version of justice is always better than yours. It doesn't just break the narcissist's hold, it sets you free from them altogether. If you believe God is bringing divine justice into your situation, I want you to declare it right now in the comments. God is my vindicator. Because when he moves, you don't just win, you win in such a way that nobody can deny it was him. Because at the end of the day, the narcissist may think they've gotten away with it, but God always has the final word, and his justice never fails. My friends, you've heard it tonight. God protects, God restores, God strengthens, and God defends. The narcissist may think they have power, but the truth is this: every lie will fall, every mask will slip, every scheme will fail, and every attack will crumble in the presence of the Almighty. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to keep questioning your worth. You don't have to fight battles that don't belong to you. Because when God defends you, you are already victorious. So walk with your head high, live knowing you are covered. And never forget, you are chosen, you are worthy, and you are protected by a power far greater than anything that could ever come against you. If you believe this word is for you, I want you to type it boldly in the comments. God is my defender. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that they are not alone. And if this message spoke to you, let it be your declaration tonight: the battle is not mine. The battle belongs to God. Because when he fights for you, there is no question about the outcome. You win.